Many of you probably know that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by around 3 million votes in 2016. Because of this, there have been a lot of people calling for a national popular vote coalition. Many states are signing a pact and passing these laws at the state level, saying that once they get enough states that have 270 electoral votes total, they will enact their coalition and then only give their electorates to the winner of the popular vote. Donald Trump won. He's the president. A lot of people don't like that. We had Russiagate for years, and now we have the threat of the national popular vote. The popular vote went to Clinton, but Trump won. That's another problem. It's actually not a problem. The Electoral College is actually extremely important. Today, we're going to go through what the latest news is on this plan, why it's a horrible, horrible idea for Democrats, why they're probably going to do it anyway. But let's talk about the importance of county-based voting and why the Electoral College is very, very important. Before we get into the first story, go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a monthly donation option. There's a cryptocurrency option, a physical address. But of course, if you just share this video, click the like button or comment below. That tells YouTube the video is good and it helps tremendously. So let's get back to the news from CNN. Maine Senate passes bill giving states electoral votes to national popular vote winner. Maine's lawmakers passed a bill that would give the state's electoral votes to the presidential candidate who won the national popular vote, taking a step toward becoming the 15th state to enact such a law. The Maine Senate voted 19-16 Tuesday to join the national popular Vote Interstate Compact, which would give all committed states electoral votes to the winning popular vote candidate should the group accrue the 270 votes necessary for a majority. One of the problems with the Democrats and many people on the left, and it's true for everybody, but something I've seen repeatedly among left-wing activists and the far left, is that they don't think about what the result will actually be. They think, hey, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, she should be president, let's enact a policy that says these states will only give their electorates to the popular vote winner. Think about what that means. Maine is, I believe Maine went blue. Maine went blue, but gave one electorate in 2016 to Trump. So, yes, technically, in 2016, Maine would have given all of their electorate to Donald Trump, not really changing the outcome of the election. Trump still would have won. But think about what it means for these blue states that are enacting this policy. If Maine is more blue than red, the only thing this can do is guarantee your electoral votes can go to Republicans. Would we be surprised to find California voting Republican and giving 55 electorates to a Republican? We would be. California's blue, probably always going to be blue. But under this coalition, I'm not entirely sure, I believe California is, this opens the door for California to give 55 electoral votes to a Republican should they win the popular vote. This plan will not help Democrats. It will only help Republicans. But of course, we need to think several steps ahead. This idea is very simple, but it makes no sense when you actually think about what the results are going to be. You will no longer need two parties. In fact, someone could win the popular vote by, let's say 50 people run, and everybody gets, a percentage of the vote, but one person gets 7%, which is 1% more than anyone else. Well, then you have a popular vote president based on a tiny, tiny minority of the population. Now, it's possible the two-party remains the way it is. If it does, this idea being enacted by Democrats at the state level will only ever guarantee blue states go red. Because think about it. Do you think low population red states are going to give more power to blue states? Of course not. There's a very important reason why we have an electoral college, and I'm going to go through that. But let's read through some of these states and some of the reasons for this idea, and then we're going to talk about why the electoral college is so damn important, and it is. California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington State, and the District of Columbia have all committed to the pact. The most recent addition, New Mexico, put the total at 189 electoral votes. Now, according to their plan, once they get enough states to total 270, the plan goes into effect. But of course, you've heard my thoughts, it'll only backfire. Former Maine Governor Paul LePage alleged earlier this year that if such a law were to pass, white people will not have anything to say. What would happen if they do what they say they're going to do? White people will not have anything to say, he said. It's only going to be the minorities that would elect. It would be California, Texas, and Florida. Not necessarily, excuse me. because if the popular vote goes to anyone else, those states would go blue. The Electoral College effectively results in voters casting ballots not for their desired presidential candidates, but for 530 electors who in turn select candidates. The mechanism clinched President Donald Trump the 2016 presidential victory despite Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton winning a popular vote majority by nearly 3 million. And so I believe I have those numbers here we go. Donald Trump had 62.9 million. Hillary had 65.8. Gary Johnson had 4.4. Jill Stein had 1.4. It's actually a lot of votes for Gary and Jill. Not too bad. CNN ends by saying, "My view," and this is from Elizabeth Warren, "my view is that every vote matters. And the way we can make that happen is that we can have national voting, and that means get rid of the Electoral College and every vote counts," she said. Other candidates have since taken up the same position. This is a terrible idea. It's a horrible, horrible idea. For one, I explained, this will likely result in blue states giving their electorates to Republicans, which makes absolutely no sense. But let's talk about this thing called the blue wall. And this is why the idea is a terrible, terrible idea. The blue wall is a term used by political scientists and pundits to refer to 18 U.S. states and the District of Columbia that the Democratic Party consistently won between 1992 and 2012. But why 2012? Because here we can see on this map, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. These states are part of the blue wall. However, we can then see that Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania flipped red. Why? Well, let me show you a meme to explain it. This is, I don't know who this meme is, but it's like the Hardy Boys or something. He's holding up a book. It said, "What Happened" by Hillary Rodham Clinton. He looks inside the book and it says, "I didn't campaign in Wisconsin. I didn't campaign in Wisconsin, Michigan, and the Midwest." He then goes on to say, "Goddamn Russians." The point is, I would assume Hillary thought it was such a guarantee they would win these states. She didn't bother going there. And Trump did. And Trump talked about why the free trade agreements were bad. He talked about bringing the economy back, the manufacturing base, and it resonated in these three states, which helped Donald Trump secure his victory. So, will a national popular vote coalition matter? In my opinion, it won't. But let's talk about the importance of the Electoral College. Here we have, this is the National Popular Vote site, and they try and use an argument often used to support the Electoral College. They claim that because of the way the system is set up, people only campaign in states where they think they're going to win. This is actually wrong, and this is a very, very strange argument. I would honestly, if someone were going to ask me, I would say this is Republican black propaganda. Republicans trying to convince Democrats to vote against their own interests. Of course, that's not the case. It's conspiratorial. But think about it. The only reason people campaign in these states is because they have a potential to swing these states. As we saw, what I just showed you, the blue wall fell. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania flipped red. Well, maybe Hillary Clinton should have campaigned there. But of course, she didn't. In reality, if we get rid of the Electoral College, people will only campaign in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles because those are huge bases. Of course, they'd go to other cities, but they would ignore smaller jurisdictions. Many people say, why should it be that someone who lives in a rural area, why should Wyoming get 2 senators? They ask. Well, it should. 100%. Absolutely. And I'll explain to you why. I covered the drought. You may have heard me talk about this many times. This is one of the best examples. What you're seeing now on your screen, for those that are watching, if you're listening, we're looking at a YouTube video of mine called "California's Drought: A City Without Water." The description reads: "The town of Porterville is ground zero for the drought, and on its eastern edge lies East Porterville, a town where local residents have run out of water entirely because there's not enough people there." What do you think happens when there is a drought? What do you think happens when resources are finite? Does it necessarily make sense to vote based on resource? Not entirely, but we do need to protect the concept. People in this town are low income, mostly migrants. They had no water because the farmers were drilling for groundwater. The groundwater was then being sucked up, lowering the water table, resulting in residential water wells going dry. This was a small town where across the street was a golf course with sprinklers on. This is what happens when you are in the minority and you are voting based on simple popular vote. You end up with people being stripped of their access to drinking water. But it gets even more complicated than this. In Tulare County, where these people live, the farmers, as they explained to us, this may not be completely accurate, but this is what we when we interviewed them, and this is what we looked up. We talked to some experts. They said California votes, and the big cities voted to take surface water to the big cities. That means the farmers in these areas, minding their own business, cannot have their own water. It rains a little bit, the water runs down, but they're not allowed to touch it because it has to be sent off to the cities who outvoted the rural areas. Think about what that results in. So one of the things that's really interesting is people talk about Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, why it's all important, but did you know that Trump won 2,662 counties, and Hillary Clinton won only 487 counties? What we're looking at on the screen is from the Associated Press. Trending story that Clinton won just 57 counties is untrue. Now, the reality is Hillary Clinton won 487 nationwide, and Trump won 2,626. When you look at it that way, it's kind of a very different narrative. You can talk about Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, but all that means is that a ton of people live in Los Angeles and New York. It means nothing for what actually runs this country. Simply because people choose to live in crowded urban areas should not mean that those crowded urban areas get more access to resources than any other jurisdiction. Further, we don't live in a direct democracy. We live in a democratic republic, a constitutional republic, a liberal democracy. All of these things refer to the same thing. We have democratic institutions to elect leaders based on region. States vote because states are part of a union. We are not necessarily just one simple country. We are a United States where each state has its own ability to pass laws and choose how they run their own elections. By all means, to these states, by all means, feel free to join the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I believe it's called. What is it? The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. But let's go back and look at this map and just show you there are blue states. They're consistently blue states. Most of the states who have joined it, I believe maybe even all of them, are blue states. That's not going to help you. You are opening up a vulnerability. But more importantly, the Electoral College protects small jurisdictions from the tyranny of the majority. Is it fair that people who live in a small farm town should have their water table drained because Los Angeles wants to have long, hot showers on a golf course? No. In fact, there was one jurisdiction near Carlsbad. They were outraged that they couldn't water their lawns. And these were very, very wealthy people. And this is what you see. The people who live in East Porterville are poor. The people who work in Tulare County are mostly migrant farmers, working farmhands and things like that. But the big cities, where the median income is much higher, where people take long, hot showers, where they film for Hollywood, where Hollywood exists, they vote against the interests of the poor, and there's more of them. So the poor people are forced to go without water. And then what do? Do they leave? Well, they can't afford it. Let me say it one more time. It does not make sense to hand over authority to the wealthy majority in crowded urban areas so that they can take away your drinking water. That makes no sense. How do we protect smaller counties? We have an electoral system. We weigh votes differently because, look, one of the most important aspects of the Electoral College is that California wasn't always the massive powerhouse with a massive population that it is now. It was once an empty, massive western state. And how did they justify getting as many electoral votes as they did? You can look at Montana or Wyoming. They get only 3 votes each. Is that fair for such big states? You could argue it's not. But at some point, people might actually move to Montana for some reason or another. If there's a population boom, that will shift the power, and Montana will become dominant and have much more electoral votes. The system makes sense. Unfortunately, uneducated and angry people are going to cut off their nose to spite their face. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She should have won the presidency, failing to recognize she didn't campaign in blue wall states because she was overconfident and she lost them. I will add one more thing. This is potentially bad news for Trump. You had a lot of people in these blue wall states who also didn't vote because they thought it was a foregone conclusion. They thought that these states were going to go blue no matter what, and Trump won by slim margins. It's going to be tough. But Trump did bring back the economy. The economy is booming, 3% record low unemployment across all demographics. And even Trevor Noah of The Daily Show said recently on Jimmy Kimmel's show that, hey, the economy's booming. Trump did what he said he was going to do. And even Bill Maher said you got to give him credit for the economy. This is going to change perceptions. A lot of people voted for Trump for whatever reason. There's a lot of chaos vote, but now he's going to get a lot of people who said, you know what, the economy is good. I don't want it to stop. And the final point I want to make here is just plain and simple. There are a lot of things that people bring up as an excuse as to why Hillary lost. Oh, the popular vote. Oh, Russiagate, right? It's nonsense. She lost because she was a bad candidate and she didn't campaign where she needed to, but then she blamed the Russians. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. If you want to support my work, once again, you can go to timcast.com/donate. It's direct contributions from all of you is much better than relying on ad revenue like some of these big networks that are fizzling out and crashing. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Maine has signed on. You know, if it's possible this could have an impact, because let's be real. If enough votes sign this deal, and you do get some swing states to sign this deal, it's possible that, you know, Hillary Clinton or you know, some other Democrat, they're just going to start campaigning in these big cities. In my opinion, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is extremely dangerous. But you let me know what you think. We'll keep the conversation going. You can follow me on Minds at Timcast. Stay tuned. I'll have more videos on my second channel, youtube.com/TimcastNews, starting at 6 p.m. For those that are listening on the podcast, this will be the last segment. But thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m., youtube.com/TimcastNews. If you're listening on the podcast and you like it, leave a good review. It really helps, and I will see you all next time.